Welcome back. President Biden will address the nation tonight from Washington on the situation in Israel and Ukraine. During his trip back to Washington from Israel, the president commented on the Gaza hospital blast, telling reporters that Palestinians have to, quote, learn how to shoot straight. He said this, watch.
I'm not suggesting that Hamas deliberately did it either. It's that old thing, got to learn how to shoot straight. It's not the first time Hamas has launched something that didn't function very well. So I don't know all the detail, but I do know the people at the Defense Department who I respect, and the intelligence community that I respect. It is highly improbable that Israel did that.
Joining me right now is Wisconsin Congressman Tom Tiffany, a member of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for being here this morning. What did you make of that comment from Joe Biden?
Well, President Biden's been saying the right thing over the last week, and I mean, it's quite clear that the Israelis did not bomb this hospital based on the evidence that we see at this point.
Yeah.
And but it's important not just to say the right things, you have to do the right things, and that's what the rest of the world is watching, and people in the United States. Are we going to do the right thing in the Middle East?
Well, what is the right thing in your view?
Well, first of all, the bill that I introduced, the Gaza Act, to not allow people that have a Palestinian Authority passport to be able to come into the United States. I'm very concerned that the Biden administration is going to want to move hundreds of thousands of people here in the United States when both Jordan and Egypt have said, that's our red line. We will not accept these refugees. Why should America?
It's unbelievable. On top of all of the illegals coming in through the wide open southern border.
Exactly.
Yeah, Tiana.
And we also know that there are tons of not just illegal immigrants from South America, but them coming over from Russia, from China, from the Middle East. With regards to that foreign aid, is there any way that the House is considering withholding, that $1 billion annually that we give to Egypt unless they admit Gaza refugees? So that way Israel can start its ground assault. Is there any talk about the foreign aid, not just to Egypt, but also to Lebanon, to make sure that they tamp down on Hezbollah, which has all those rockets fired at the northern border of Israel?
Yes, all of that should be on the table, and make sure that that aid is being used appropriately. I'm very concerned that the Biden administration is going to talk about, that they are talking about, what is it, $100 million to send to Gaza in aid that just ends up in the hands of Hamas, and they use it for, for ill purposes.
Yeah.
And we got to make sure that it's used appropriately if we're going to even send it there.
Well, I mean, look at your colleague, Ms. Tlaib, talking about this being Israel's fault. She continues to push this story that Israel was behind the hospital bomb, and we know otherwise. There are 300 pro-Palestinian demonstrators, meanwhile, already arrested at the Capitol yesterday. Were you there? The group swarmed the Cannon Rotunda, demanding a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. 3 people have been charged so far with assaulting a police officer. Can you tell us what went on?
Yeah, I'm in the Cannon office building. That's where my office is, and I heard from my staff that it had been shut down. They shut down the entrances, and they instructed staff, do not leave the building. So you had all this that was going on yesterday, and this was in part fomented by Representative Tlaib repeating this lie. And I'm waiting for Hakeem Jeffries and the leadership of the Democrats here in the House of Representatives to take action in regards to Representative Tlaib and doing something like that, especially when you have tensions so high in the Middle East. This does no good, especially when you're lying to the American people and to people around the world.
Yeah, and you just mentioned your bill that you introduced to block Palestinian refugees from entering the U.S., the Gaza Act that you just mentioned, the Guaranteeing Aggressor Zero Admission Act. It's going to rescind visas of anybody embracing terrorist views. But look, Congressman, you can't get much done without a speaker. So let's talk about that. Where does it stand in terms of Jim Jordan? You voted for Jordan, right?
Yeah, I did. Since Jim has put his hat in the ring, I have supported him. I think he's the right person at the right time. Sitting on the Judiciary Committee, where he's chairman, he really provides real leadership. If people have seen his work up close, I mean, he provides real leadership. We're always well prepared. I think now is the place and time for Jim Jordan. I look forward to voting for him again today if we have a vote, and I'm going to continue to vote for him as long as he puts his name in the hat, because he is the right person, the right time when we're trying to wring out inflation, when we're trying to secure the border and get back to energy independence. We need someone that's strong.
Well, we're talking about a lot of things. We're not talking about the investigation into the influence peddling of a sitting president. You just saw a graphic of your 22 colleagues who are opposing Jim Jordan. Why? What are they upset about with Jim Jordan? Why do they oppose him?
You know, I think it's a combination of things. You know, some of it is past grievances. You know, you see some of that happen. But I think one of the biggest things is some of the people that are on appropriations, they're very concerned about Representative Jordan. And those are some of the people that he's going to have to get past. And that's what happens here in Washington, D.C. We're used to spend, spend, spend. And we're saying, you know what, we got to stop this.
Right.
I mean, you heard in the previous segment, Maria, when they talked about, one of your guests talked about government spending as part of the problem here.
Absolutely.
We got to get it under control.
And yet this president doesn't want to address it. Kayleigh, jump in.
Yeah, Congressman, you were there yesterday, so these numbers aren't going to be unfamiliar to you, but I want to read them so that the viewers are aware of the vote that took place yesterday. Jim Jordan won 199 votes from Republicans for the speakership. Democratic Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries won 212 votes for the speakership. Now, you mentioned that this is just sort of what happens in Washington, but it's not. You never see this sort of division on the opposite side of the aisle among the Democratic Party. Democrats receive their talking points, they receive who they're going to vote for, and they go for it. They do not break their unity.
Yeah.
Why can't Republicans act with that same force and confidence?
Real quick.
Yeah, because they act in lockstep. We are independent thinkers in the Republican Party, and that's the good part about our party. We're going to get a speaker here. We're following the process, and then we're going to move on and do good things for the American people, representing the true interests of the American people.
Yeah, well, I want to hear more about this. Stay with us, Congressman. We got breaking news right now. Jobless claims are hitting the tape, and Cheryl has the numbers. Cheryl.
All right. So I want to go through the claims first, because we've got actually a new, I think it might be an annual low for initial claims. This is that tight labor market, guys. We keep talking about 198,000 for initial claims. The estimate was 212,000. So again, I think this is looking like a one-year low for jobless claims at this point. Also continuing, coming in a little bit stronger than expected, 1.734 million. The estimate for continuing was 1.71 million. So that tight labor market, it is still there, and that's what the Fed's going to have to talk about. We'll see if Jerome Powell addresses that later today when he speaks here in New York City. Philly Fed came in worse than expected, and that number has been a market mover in the past, Maria, as you know. It came in down 9%. The expectation was only down 6.6%. So that particular regional manufacturing number also points to maybe a not so great economic story. I know Mark Tepper was talking about that earlier. We've most telegraphed recession in history.
Yeah.
Still possible, Maria.
Well, I mean, markets haven't really moved much. Your thoughts, Mark, on this number, this jobless claims number?
Yeah, I mean...
And look at the October Philly Fed, down 9 points.
Which is so super strange. I mean, you would think that the economy's slowing based on half the data we receive, and then the other half, is as it's related to jobs,
Market's
makes it
turning
look
around.
Like, makes it look like things are doing well. I feel like the consumer will continue to spend as long as the consumer has jobs. Once we start to see that fray, I think we end up in a recession, probably towards the end of the first quarter of next year.
Congressman, what do you think? Do you think we're going to see a recession next year? And of course, this, a stalemate in Congress is not helping.
So a couple things. You should always look at the labor participation rate. We have so many people that are on the sidelines. We need able-bodied people to work.
Yep.
And the other thing is that, we talk about the machinations with the Fed. I believe the Fed has done what they can. It is now up to the political leadership in Washington, D.C. to put in place pro-growth policies. There's no reason for oil to be $90 a barrel. We can produce it right here in America. No reason for that. That sets us on a pro-growth strategy. Those people that are able-bodied, they should work, rather than having this labor participation rate that's in the very low 60s, I believe, at this point. There are pro-growth things that we can put in place. place. That's what has to happen next in order to have a strong economy.
All right, we will leave it there. Congressman, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being here.